Hello and welcome back to the Jolly Franchers YouTube channel. We are the Royal We, a solo developer on the game Kid Detective, a murder mystery RPG that follows all the parameters of Game Maker's Toolkit's video on what makes a good detective game. You should check it out. If you like this video series, please wishlist Kid Detective on Steam. It would help me out a bunch. This week, we will be covering changing sorting layers for a top-down game. There are other ways to do this, and there are tutorials out there, and in fact, I will link one in the description that change the sorting layer based on changing the project settings. For my game, I came up with this solution to change sorting layers for a top-down game because I have side scroller sections in my game and top-down sections. So I didn't feel comfortable changing the entire project settings. So on this week of Making Monkey Island, we will be covering this style. I haven't seen one that covers this, so let's get into the video. We are no longer walking into walls. The motion is smooth. We're not getting caught on the walls. Our animation is going in all 8 directions, or 4, however many you wanted to add. But you can see we still have the problem that our sorting layer is not working. We can walk right up onto this desk, even though we should have to jump up on the desk. We should be pictured behind the desk. So let's go in and make a new method, and it's going to be a private void named adjust sorting layer. And what this is going to do is it's going to dynamically change the sorting layer of the player as we move up and down on the screen so that we get that 3D illusion. I'm going to go up here to the update method already, and before I forget, I am going to add this adjust sorting layer into the update method so that it updates our sorting layer on the fly as we change our Y position on the screen. And up here, we are going to need to access our sprite renderer because that's where the sorting layer is. So I'm going to type in private sprite renderer, and I'm going to name it sprite renderer. And this is so we can access the sprite renderer component that's on our player. So what we're going to need to do to tell the variable which sprite renderer we're accessing is the same thing we did for our animator. Sprite renderer, the variable we just made, is equal to the component that's on the game object that this script is attached to. Get component, sprite renderer. As easy as that. Okay, so now down here in our adjust sorting layer method, I am going to type sprite renderer dot sorting order, which is the order within a sorting layer. Thank you. And I am going to set it equal to, and this might be a little confusing, but as you can see me dragging up and down this order in layer, it goes up by integer values, 1, 2, 3, or -1, 2, 3. And our Y value up here is going to be in decimal points. And so I'm going to go back here in our script, and I'm going to type in sprite renderer equals transform.position.y, our Y position on the screen. And I'm going to multiply this value by -100 because my pixels per unit, each pixel of my pixel art is worth 0.01 because I set my pixels per unit on my sprite sheets to 100 PPU. And it immediately gets angry because the sorting order is an integer and the thing that I had was a float. So I'm going to cast it as an integer using this syntax. So, because this adjust sorting layer method is based off of the Y position of things on the screen, we are going to need to adjust the positions of those accordingly. So I'm going to reset the transform of the tile map that our desk sprite is underneath, any obstacle in the scene. And as you can see, resetting the position of that moved the desk sprite off to the side. So I'm going to reset the desk sprite to where I want it. And I'm going to make sure the X and Y values are rounded to the 100th place of the decimals, since my pixels per unit are rounded to the 100th place. And now, with any object in your scene, you can add this script to it, which I'm going to call adjust sorting layer, which will automatically assign the sorting layer value to the object so that you appear behind it when you should and in front of it when you should, according to a 3D illusion. So I'm going to go in here and I am going to add a sprite renderer variable, just like we did last time. And in our start method, I am going to do something very similar to what we just did under our player. Sprite renderer equals get component sprite renderer. And this will work for all objects that, as long as you place the pivot point of the sprite where you want the transition to happen, with your player being in front and behind it at the pivot point itself, then if you add this script to any obstacle in your scene, then it will set the sprite renderer to the correct value all by itself. You won't have to put it in manually, but if you don't want to do that, you can put it in manually. It's really not that much labor. So yeah, I'm just going to randomize the order in layer and show you that it immediately sets it to -23, which apparently the Y position is lying about it being 24. And as you can see here already, our feet are now behind the desk when we're behind it, and we move in front of it when we want to move in front of it. As you can see, as we move from top to bottom, if you watch the order in layer, it changes dynamically as we change the Y position. As you see, when we change the X position, it doesn't move. But when we move up and down, the order in layer does so as well. And this is what enables us to change the order in layer and appear behind things when we go behind them and in front of them when we want to go in front of them. And if you set the pivot points right, you'll have a result like this. As we can see, the Y value of this is -2.77. And so the order in layer is 277. It will work out very nicely like that. Anyone can do the math. Even if you're not using the adjust sorting layer component, the script that we did at the end of the video, you can set these manually very easily as long as you set your pivot points correctly. And now I will show you what setting your pivot point incorrectly looks like. As you can see here, the Y value is 1.46, but the order in layer is -176. Why is that? If we go into the project here and go into my sprite sheet, into the sprite editor, and editing is disabled during play mode, but I checked this out beforehand. Here is the backwards gray building in question. And what happened was I set the order in layer to be the bottom left, the 0, 0 place, but the pivot point was about 30 pixels higher, and so I had to adjust for that. So if you want the math to be easy, if you want to use that adjust sorting layer component that we just worked on, set the pivot point to the pixel that you want to adjust your sorting layer to. As you can see, my pixels per unit for all of the sprites in my game are the same, which I recommend, and everyone recommends that to be true. And mine are 100. If your pixels per unit are different than that, you can take out your handy dandy calculator. As you can see, you can calculate your pixels per unit by taking one Unity unit and dividing it by your pixels per unit ratio. And this will tell you how many units high and wide each pixel in your pixel art is. So if your pixels per unit are 16 because you have 16 by 16 tiles in your game, then each pixel would be 0.0625 Unity units wide. Now you could still use my same formula in the adjust sorting layer method on your player and on objects in your game that you want to dynamically sort. However, you would be adjusting on maybe sub-pixel levels. And that could actually end up giving you more precision. So just let me know if you have any trouble with that, if you're using a different pixels per unit in your game already and you don't want to change, then you bringing up any questions you might have might help future watchers of this video if you leave a comment. And now we're going to end with this wonderful dragon talking to us. So I bid you adieu, celestial angel. Hee. Bye. Okay, that's it for this week. Next week, we will cover clickable objects and we will start covering dialogue. It's gonna get easier from now on because we will be using an amazing free visual scripting tool called Fungus, which comes with a great dialogue system, branching narrative system. It's so easy to use. I talked about it a lot on this channel already. I've done videos about clickable objects before, but I'm going to tweak them specifically for Monkey Island so that they won't trigger until your character walks close enough to them. If you are enjoying this series, please leave a like, subscribe, and wishlist Kid Detective on Steam because it's gonna be really great, and I love it a lot. And I love you. Stay jolly.